Gentleman yields back, and we're honored to hear from the ranking member of the full committee, Mrs. Waters, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. While decentralized finance, or DeFi, aims to create greater efficiencies and transparency, it can also pose heightened risk of hacks, scams, unequal information, and conflicts of interest that can harm consumers and investors. We've seen this play out in the new DeFi venture that Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. plan to launch, called World Liberty Financial. Because of the prominence of those behind the project, bad actors took advantage of the opportunity to scam potential users. Laura Trump and Tiffany Trump's ex accounts were hacked, and scammers used them to announce links to a coin, falsely claiming to represent World Liberty Financial. According to the analysis, at least 200,000 people viewed the posts, and approximately 2,000 people purchased 1.8 million worth of the fake token. Lawmakers have a responsibility here, and I think the lawmakers have a responsibility to consider strong protections to prevent such scams from moving forward. Mr. Hayes, I'd like to ask you a question. OPEC DeFi platforms with unclear governance and control mechanisms may create hurdles for regulators to establish responsibility and accountability for regulatory compliance. In launching actions against DeFi entities, regulators like the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission have had to navigate complex legal issues. We've seen these issues play out in litigation involving decentralized autonomous organizations and virtual currency mixers. In your view, how can regulators deal with mass non-compliance by entities that claim they are decentralized to avoid regulatory compliance? What more needs to be done to ensure robust consumer and investor protections in this industry?
Thank you, Congresswoman. The issues you've laid out here are pretty profound, and I think the simplest way to answer your question is that regulators should continue to do what they're doing. So for the example, the Securities and Exchange Commission's rulemaking, looking at the definition of exchange, we've heard some discussion about that today. I think there are a couple of points to keep in mind. The original law that drafted that, the Securities Exchange Act, was meant to be expansive to cover a lot of different scenarios. Far from sort of an antiquated idea, it really was meant to be evergreen. And Congress in the past has considered narrowing that definition and decided against it. So this rulemaking, ironically, provides a certain degree of clarity that looks at the functional nature of how exchanges operate. And what the proposed rulemaking has said, or the rule has really explored, look, if you are matching a buyer and a seller to facilitate a trade, that's an exchange. You can be a regulated exchange under that act. You can be an ATS. You can be a DCM under the CFTC if you're not dealing with securities. There are a couple different pathways. And in fact, I know they're continuing to work on that rulemaking to further clarify what kind of information applies to that. So the SEC is already embarking upon that effort, and we should continue to support their efforts. I think the CFTC has done similar work with the Uki DAO case, where they've identified how there are times and places where DAOs meet the facts and circumstances similar to what you might find with an unincorporated association. So in fact, persons are responsible. And I think legislation that undermines that and makes it harder for regulators to do that is misguided.
Thank you very much. I yield back.